You are welcome here in this house of worship. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, you are welcome here. You are welcome here in this house of worship. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, you are welcome here. You are welcome here in this house of worship. Wherever you are, wherever you come from, you are welcome here. One last time. And you are welcome here in this house of worship. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, you are welcome here.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome indeed. Welcome to the Westside Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Liz Bucklew, a member of the worship team, and it is my great joy to be gathering with you this day, along with the Reverend Carter Smith. Our musicians today are Scott Farrell, John Hanson, Larry Jones, and Marion Key. They're providing our music. Gabby Berdetti is lighting our chalice, and I'm sharing our Time for All Ages story. Henry Sikora and Nate Mesnard are our tech experts, bringing us here in the sanctuary together with those who are joining us remotely. And for the gifts of all these folks, we are grateful. It's a blessing to be able to worship together and to be here with all of you today. If you're with us for the first time or the first time in a while, welcome. We're so glad you're here to share in this time, to make some space in your life, to attend to your heart and your spirit, to come together in community. Please visit our website or scan the QR code in the pews to fill out a Getting to Know You welcome form so that we can send you our weekly electronic newsletter, the Westside Week. It's full of information about upcoming worship services and other congregational activities, both in person and online. And after the service, let's gather for conversation and community so we can catch up with each other and greet our newcomers on this warm summer day. We gather today from many locations, and we take this moment to particularly acknowledge that our congregation resides on the traditional territory of the Duwamish people. In this acknowledgement, we recognize the Duwamish heritage imbued in the mountains, valleys, waterways, and shorelines that surround us all. May we nurture our relationships with our coastal Salish neighbors, especially the Duwamish people, and our shared responsibilities to this place. Let us take a moment to offer humble respect for this place and its peoples, and renew our commitment to the work of authentic reconciliation. Whoever you are, wherever you have come from, whatever the color of your skin, whoever and however you love, however your body moves and your brain works, however you identify, you are welcome in this faith community. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition has no test of faith, no creed or oath to swear. We have instead the promises we make to one another, commitments we make to heal a hurting world within and beyond our walls. It's good to see familiar faces and some new faces. Let's take a few moments to greet those around you in any way that feels safe. A smile, a wave, an elbow bump.
Hearing all of these enthusiastic greetings, and may they continue to warm us as we go through this service and afterwards in the social hour. Our opening words this morning are adapted from Summer Albayati. In betwixt and in between, we move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what we can become, what can be. We gather together with courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this and not that, with patience and faith and love and hope. That this time will pass like the sun that moves in between rising and setting, reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between.
In each week's service, we invite a member of our congregation to light the chalice of our shared Unitarian Universalist faith. Today, our chalice lighter is Gabby Berdetti. We've asked our chalice lighters to respond to the question, what gives you hope? Gabby, come on up and tell us what gives you hope.
In a world where homelessness has unfortunately risen and where we witness the passing of anti-LGBTQ, racist, and other hateful laws in many states and countries around the world, it can be incredibly challenging to maintain a positive outlook for the future. What gives me hope is the resilience and compassion that I see in individuals and communities around me. I see organizations and volunteers working tirelessly to provide shelter, food, and support to those in need. These everyday heroes exemplify the belief that every person deserves a chance to rebuild their lives. Despite the passing of anti-LGBTQ, racist, and other hateful laws, I see a growing movement of love, acceptance, and equality. I am inspired by the individuals who stand up for their rights, who fight for inclusivity, and who tirelessly advocate for a society that embraces diversity. Moreover, the younger generation fills me with hope. They possess an unwavering belief in their ability to create change and challenge the status quo. They are the voice of progress, boldly demanding a more just and inclusive world. Their passion, resilience, and refusal to accept the status quo inspire me to have faith in the potential for a brighter future. When we come together, united by a shared vision of a better world, of a better tomorrow, we can achieve remarkable things. By joining hands and working towards common goals, we have the ability to create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond our individual efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. As Gabby lights our chalice, Please join me in speaking the words of our congregation's affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with one another.
I invite you all to rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 1029 in your teal hymnals, if you'd like to look along. Love knocks and waits for us to hear. Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn, embracing enemies. Love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids a start to ask and seek and find. Love conquers, endures at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life begin. Thank you.
In a moment, we will engage in a collective act of generosity known as our offering, when we take time to actively support Westside UU congregation and its many ministries with our gifts by text, check, or cash. Each month, we choose a community organization to share 1/3 of our undesignated offering gifts. For the month of July, our community giving recipient is Friends Ugandan Safe Transport. In 2014, the Olympia monthly meeting of the Religious Society of Friends, Quakers, established Friends Ugandan Safe Transport to aid LGBTQ+ Ugandans who are fleeing their homelands for their lives and safety. In May of this year, Uganda again passed one of the world's harshest anti-gay laws against the LGBTQ+ population and those who help them. The law punishes same-sex acts with life imprisonment and the death penalty for certain homosexual activity. Helpers also face long prison sentences. With funds provided through the Friends Ugandan Safe Transport Fund, Olympia Friends and their supporters have moved about 3,000 people out of Uganda to safe places at the cost of approximately $100 a person. We're called to help provide financial support to this fund to assist the rising number of endangered LGBTQ+ people who are desperate to escape this draconian law that continues to terrorize them. Because our Sunday worship schedule has switched to twice monthly, there are fewer Sunday opportunities to extend our generosity to these community partners. Please consider increasing your contribution in each service so we can continue to support the work of these worthy organizations. You can give by text, sending a message with a $ and the amount you want to give to the number on the screen behind me. For folks here in the sanctuary who prefer to give by cash or check, the greeters will move among us shortly. And now please enjoy this gift of music by John, Larry, and Marion. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for giving as you're able to support Westside along with the Friends Ugandan Safe Transport. Your generosity of time, treasure, and presence are gifts that sustain us as a community.
Each time that we gather, we take time to honor the joys and sorrows that are present in this community. So let us now take this moment of silence, followed by music, to hold in the tender vessel of our loving care all the joys and sorrows, both known and unknown, of our beloved community. Let us also extend our compassion to lift up and honor the lives of our neighbors throughout the wider human community. It is important to take time like this to be quiet, to be still, so we can be in touch with the deepest and best parts of ourselves, our inner voice. In prayer or meditation, these practices ground us. I am going to invite you to join in a body prayer written by Reverend Annie Scott. This is a time of quieting, but also of motion. I will show you them, invite you to move through them with me. You can make the motions as big or as small as your body calls you to do. I will guide you through it once, then we will all pray with our bodies in silence 3 times. We begin with our hands in front of us in the prayer pose to find our inner quiet. We raise our arms up high to open ourselves to the spirit of life and love divine. We bring our hands to our hearts to affirm the strength of our inner voice. We extend our hands out in front of us to offer kindness and respect to others. And then we lift our open hands to offer to others and the world all that we have to give. And then we bring our hands down, gathering those gifts and bringing them to our heart and returning to our stillness with hands in prayer pose. So we're going to do this again a couple more times.
So when I heard that the theme for the service today was liminality, and I swear I've used that word more often in the past week than I've used in my entire life. But it actually has this, it holds so much potency. And this song came to me as an idea to share about this idea of we're here and we're there, we're ready to move, are we going to kind of hang around a while? What are we going to do? I am dreaming of a riverbank, mists enshroud the further shore. I am standing in a wooden boat, in my hands a golden oar. Will I row against the current, or let myself be carried out to sea? Where I reach land at last is up to the river, but the journey is up to me. Time to sail, reluctant pilgrim. My fear is all I've got to lose. Life is nothing but a dreamscape, and the dream is mine to choose. I am racing down a corridor, endless doors on either side. I could open any one of them, step on through and change my life. Sometimes I stand there on the threshold, afraid to leave my bright familiar home. Sometimes I spend my days going by so quickly, I don't see the doors at all. Step on through, reluctant pilgrim. My fear is all I've got to lose. Life is nothing but a dreamscape, and the dream is mine to choose. I am waking in a forest glade. Needles of pine are in my hair. I see pathways through the underbrush, leading to I don't know where. I hear strange noises in the thickets, and I know some trails may not lead where they seem. Pain may await me, but I know if I stay here, I'll sleep right through my dream. Find a way, reluctant pilgrim. My fear is all I've got to lose. Life is nothing but a dreamscape, and the dream is mine to choose. Let us say dreams are ours to choose. Ours to choose.
Thank you, Scott. In his essay, Circles, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "People wish to be settled, but it is only so far as they are unsettled that there is any hope for them." In my sermon today, I am staking my claim here. I am here to make the case that he is right in this essay, that dwelling in unsettled places is the way we grow as people and deepen in our spiritual lives. And I believe that this concept of liminality will help us do that. And I know liminality is a big word and maybe one that you haven't heard before. Maybe you've heard it often, but you don't quite understand it. So the truth is that I know this word because I was privileged enough to study religious studies in college, and it's an important vocab word in this niche academic world of ritual studies. So it's okay if it's new to you. Liminality, at its simplest form, is the state of being in between. It is the threshold place that we briefly pause in as we move through change. It comes from the Latin limen, which literally means threshold. It is the time after we move out of one state of being, but we have not yet arrived in the next. Originally, this concept of liminality was developed by classical anthropologist Arnold van Gennep and was later popularized by Victor Turner. The two of them found it especially useful in their work studying rites of passage, particularly coming of age and initiation rituals. In these rituals, the initiand and potentially their peers are given an opportunity to shed the identity that they arrived with, to dwell briefly in a time without identity, and then to emerge with a new identity. Think of cultures around the world that use ritual to mark the transition from childhood to adulthood. This is what they're talking about. Our recent RE Celebration Sunday, in fact, was exactly this. It was designed to celebrate that transition of folks in our congregation moving from one chapter to the next. Remember, after they passed through our arch, Jade told the fifth graders, "We now see you as middle schoolers." Liminality helps us to see that change that happens when we shed an old sense of stability and identity and seek out a new one. Think of weddings. People enter the ceremony as individuals and leave as family. The wedding ceremony gives us an opportunity to mark that transition, and between coming down the aisle and the officiant's declaration of the marriage, there is liminality. Everyone present at this wedding knows that the people in front of them have committed to make this change together. They're writing their story, constituting their identity as one unit, as they share vows, exchange rings. And yet the air feels tense with uncertainty too. Think of how many movie plots, reality TV shows are centered on the question of whether a couple will really go through with the wedding. The tension that is so exciting for all this media, that is liminality. The more you think of it, the more examples come to mind. And now earlier this week, I was talking about this sermon with my dad, and he gave me this interesting example. He asked what liminality was. I shared a bit about it, like I'd have with you. And he exclaimed, "Oh, it's just like my theory that the few months between the 1950s and the 1960s in American culture were really interesting and important." And now, what? A few months can't happen between one decade and another. That's not how time works. Knowing I'd be confused, he explained further. Yeah, sometimes people say that the 1950s truly ended with Kennedy's assassination, which was in November of 1963. And it's also been said that the 60s truly began when the Beatles went on the Ed Sullivan Show. And that was in February of '64. I've always wanted to write a book about that time in between. I guess you'd call that a liminal time? And now I will leave it to my dad or any social theorists out there to say more about the cultural importance of these particular months. But I love it as an example. Because understanding liminality is about understanding that something mysterious and interesting happens in the time after one chapter has ended, but before the next chapter has begun. I hope you are beginning to get the sense that I find liminality to be not just interesting, but also important. During these threshold times, we are left without markers of our previous sense of self and how we fit in the world. Liminality is the placelessness of the airport, where travelers rest after departure and before arrival. And liminality is the chrysalis between caterpillar and butterfly, where the insect literally liquefies, becoming a mass of goo that must completely rearrange and reconstitute itself. In the exuberance of the butterfly emerging, we may be tempted to forget the pain of that gooey stage. So paying attention to liminality helps us to be honest about the pain of transitions, the unsettled feeling that happens in the now when we reside between where we were and where we are going. It helps us to normalize all the anxiety that comes up for us and remind ourselves of the opportunities too. And I was inspired to choose this topic today because of a book I read this past spring that felt especially relevant to the life of the community here at Westside. Written by spiritual director and congregational consultant Susan Beaumont, it is called How to Lead When You Do Not Know Where You're Going. It is a guide for congregational leadership in liminal times. In her book, Beaumont argues that when communities are experiencing liminality, many of the traditional hallmarks of good leadership are no longer useful, and everyone in the community must instead be learning new skills to help them encounter that unfamiliar landscape with courage and openness. And it follows that she believes that liminal times present us with many risks and opportunities, and we can best seize those opportunities through learning to dwell in the unknown. It is undeniable that we are in liminal times here in this community. We have recently passed the 3rd anniversary of the onset of the pandemic. We are beginning to take stock of how much our world and our congregation has changed in these short years, but short years that felt very, very long. This church community is in the midst of the return to in-person programming, and we are just beginning to shape and imagine what a post-pandemic congregational life might look like. We are also deep in the experience of a ministerial transition. After a year without a minister, you and I are getting to know each other. We are learning rhythms, setting up systems. We're learning how to care for one another. And any ministerial transition is inherently a liminal time. But after a span of years with more ministerial transitions than this community would wish upon itself, the sense of unsettledness is very alive here. And I apologize, I had a cold a little bit ago. I'm fine, but I have a lingering cough. To add to our liminality, we are a few months into our work with Pam Orbach, our restorative circle and nonviolent communication consultant. There is learning and healing in progress right now. Yes, we are in liminal times here at Westside. And thankfully, there are things we can do to help us get a bit more comfortable in this unsettled place, to prepare ourselves for the inevitable emergence to the unknown other side. So what are the ways that we can best prepare ourselves for what liminality asks of us? Susan Beaumont has a few tips for us. First, she argues, we need to practice presence. While we can and should honor the past that we came from, we cannot pretend that the familiar landmarks of the past can guide us now. While we can and should dream big and anticipate a future of more stability and strength, we cannot race ahead there or assume we know the way to get there. So, how do we practice presence? As individuals, we should be reaching towards those contemplative spiritual practices, meditation, prayer, body practice, anything that helps ground us in the moment and all the discomfort that comes with this present moment. And as a community, we can slow down. We can remember that discernment and relationship building is the most important work for us right now. Most of the rest can wait. And we can encourage each other to be awake in the moment to what is stirring within and between us, and to practice vulnerability and listening with care so that we may be honest with one another. And this actually leads me to the second important skill for liminality. It is to accept that relationships in this community will change, to strive to emerge on the other side of this as a whole, collectively. Our classical theorists, Van Gennep and Turner, noticed that group relationships go through remarkable changes in liminal spaces. As people shed old identities and wait to take on new ones, long-held conflicts and social hierarchies melt away, and individuals have the opportunity to try on new roles. They call this communitas, the elusive sacred spirit of community where our bonds are made anew by the shared experience of liminality. In religious communities like ours, we can take advantage of communitas by loosening our attachment to the roles we are used to playing. We can experiment with new ways of relating to one another. In a practical way, I am encouraging you all to try joining teams and projects you have not seen yourself do before. I'm asking you to practice new ways of communicating with your fellow community members, to soften to each other and bear witness to the truth that we are all passengers on this shared journey. This is a time for shedding old hierarchies, approaching old grudges with new perspectives, and relying on one another for companionship in all the difficulty that this time brings. Susan Beaumont recommends that congregations going through times of great change use the spirit of communitas to shape their institutional memory and to think deeply about the stories that they want to tell about themselves. I hope we will take this opportunity. This is a time to declare what this community values, to name how we show up with one another, and decide how we relate to our history. So, first skill, present. And the third and final skill of navigating liminality is honestly one of the most challenging, at least it feels that way for me. This third skill is practicing innovation and getting comfortable with failure. The truth is that liminality is defined by possibility. The course is not charted for us, so there is the potential for real hurt just as much as real triumph. It might make us reluctant pilgrims. The bright side of this uncertainty is that we do get to experience the joy of trying new things, and failure is entirely possible. And despite this really true possibility, we must make attempts at innovation and creativity, and we must be ready to learn from our mistakes. Part of this means not being too attached to the outcomes of our experiments. We may try a new structure for religious exploration programs. We might try a new ritual practice on Sunday mornings. And such an experiment might not go well. Leaders who bring forth ideas might be very committed to making them work, and may even believe that the success of their new idea will be the very thing that this community needs. And really, it could be. But if we put too many expectations into our creative attempts, there is the risk that we lead ourselves into burnout and despair when things don't pan out. If people don't show up at the event, or people prefer the old ritual to the new one, we need to be okay with that, and okay looking ahead and experimenting again. And even more importantly, we must practice being kind and forgiving to our leaders. They might fail. We cannot disparage those of us who are brave enough to try new things. And we cannot rest all of our hopes and fears on any one experiment. Any one experiment that we make in this liminal time should not make or break this community. So let's release ourselves from that kind of pressure. We can let things start small and be curious about where they lead. We do not have to strategically plan a complete course change in one go. That is probably a bad use of our time. And there's something related to this that I want you to know. It's a little personal. In my time here, I have been asked to offer this community a bold and compelling vision for where my ministry here will lead. And frankly, this is not something I am willing to do at this point in time. I don't know where we're going, and I don't want to pretend that I do. Don't get me wrong, I have no shortage of ideas and schemes up my sleeve. I dream of Westside being a community hub that everyone in West Seattle knows is a resource. We could hold film screenings and concerts and weddings. We could be known as a place where people can come to practice nonviolent communication or meditation with others. We could open our Sunday, offer enriching classes for all ages, promote religious learning and spiritual deepening. We can spend more time in joyful fellowship with one another. We could help each other learn more and sharpen our analysis about the systems of injustice that shape our world, and be a place of grounding as we work to make it better. Seriously, there is so much possibility alive in this community, and I have a lot of energy to make those possibilities real. But it cannot be me or any particular person or particular leadership team to figure out how we're going to get there and what we're going to prioritize. We, all of us, must pay attention to what is stirring in our hearts, in the heart of this community. We need to pour our love and energy into discovering whatever will emerge. That's the thing about emergence, Susan Beaumont offers. It must happen. Liminality in all its instability cannot last forever. It needs to find resolution. Patterns emerge, and organizations will either cohere or pass away. So in all the fear and uncertainty of this time, we may at least be heartened that we need not dwell here forever. Beaumont writes, "The nature of emergence is such that we can't point toward expected outcomes. We know only that we are in pursuit of a new chapter, a reconfigured way of living out our mission and purpose. However, we can remain crystal clear about our intention. We can talk about what matters most to us, our purpose, our vocation. We can talk about the core values that continue to drive our mission and ministry. Hope for this community is that we try our best to get comfortable living in this liminal space. And we have to know that it won't last forever and that there are tools that can help us. We can practice presence, we can embrace communitas, and we can get comfortable with experimentation, even and especially when it leads to failure. And we can remember that though we don't know who we will emerge as, we can carry our shared values and our yearning and our spirits with us as we journey. May our greatest hopes and aspirations be our guide. May it be so.
Carter, and I invite you now to rise in body or spirit as we sing "We're Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table," which is hymn number 407 in your great hymnals.
Table.
Thank you, musicians, singers. Deep thanks to everyone who participated in this service. As always, it's a pleasure and a blessing to do this sacred work together. We hope you can stick around for coffee and conversation downstairs at social hour.
Rise in body or spirit for our closing words. Now we come to the end of this time together where we have dwelled in community and all the uncertainty and possibility that it brings. As we go from here and out into our lives, may we have the courage to face disconcerting and chaotic times with presence and openness. May we practice residing in the uncomfortable spaces, for they are a time that we can see each other in new ways, and we can risk failure for the sake of a new day. Let us commit to practicing these skills in our wider lives, and especially here in this precious community. And now, as Gabby releases our flame, may you go into this week blessed and blessing the world. We hold you in our love as you go.